Welcome back to Drive Your Thoughts podcast. I'm your host, Master Coach Carrie Marshall, and it's time to go after those goals.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.
Hey everybody, how are you doing today? I want to talk to you a little bit about the book process. So for some of you, you may know this about me, but I am a ghostwriter and I actually started my own publishing company this year. I opened a company called Stormy Ocean Publishing, and it is really dedicated to helping people get their books published, but do it in a way that is actually beneficial for the author, because I think that's sometimes what's missing. So I've always loved books. I've always been a fan of books. I read about 100 books a year, every single year since I was about 16. And so it is something that I'm really passionate about. So the reason that I want to talk to you about the book industry a little bit today, because I think that it's going to help you kind of learn where you might be stuck and your mindset about where you're stuck. So we're going to talk about the big setbacks that I see in the book industry, but also we're going to talk about maybe even my own struggle being a ghostwriter. So right now I'm working on a book. When you're a ghostwriter, you're actually not allowed to talk about who you're working for. So I'm not going to use names here, but I'm working on a book, and I've worked with this author for several years. And this book in particular, I have really good feelings about it. I love the topic. He's done a lot of research. I've done a lot of research. But for both of us, it's feeling like it's something special. Now, I can be honest and tell you that this is not how every single book feels. Even with this author, sometimes we joke that not every book is the special sauce, and that's okay. Sometimes we have to, just write the content and get it out there. But this one really feels special, like New York Times bestseller special. Now, I've had a lot of books on bestseller lists. I've had one book on the USA Today list, several books on the Amazon bestseller list, but I've never had a ghostwriting book hit the New York Times bestseller list. This one's kind of feeling that way. And so what I want you to know is that sometimes when you have something that's really special, and I want you to think about your own life, have you ever had a project or a thing that you're doing, maybe a work thing, maybe it was just the vision for your life that feels like this is something. And I see a lot of my clients that'll do this. I just actually helped one of my clients launch a course. And while we were kind of mapping it out for him, he said, Carrie, this feels like something big. And I was like, yeah, I think so too. I could just feel it and the energy that he had around it. Well, he launched the course, and it ended up making $250,000 in the first weekend. It was something special. It's been really powerful to watch. But what I want to tell you is the process, because I think that some of us have this happen. It feels like that special sauce. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about, that it's special, but then what? I just want to kind of offer that just because it's special doesn't mean that you're not going to hit some major obstacles and struggles. So I'm going to use that book again. I'm just going to call it my bestseller, my New York Times bestseller. So this author and I go through the process, and we're mapping it out. What we do when we go through a process of working with a ghostwriter, when you work with me, what we do is we actually sit down for 5 hours and we map out the book. It's everything on the table. Let's get it all out. Let's kind of work around it. Let's see what your idea is, see if it is something. And so we did that. And so we had all of this mapped out, and it was amazing. Well, then I start to get to work, and it is not working out. The main theme is not working with the objectives, and the objectives are feeling more and more and more, which me and this author know that most of the time you need to like have one main objective. Well, he keeps like 5 and 6 and 7 because he's so excited about this book. And so it just starts to feel really heavy and hard. And I have it mapped out, but then when I look at it and to paper, it's not making sense. So on and on and on this goes. It is one of the hardest struggles I've ever been through with writing. Most of the time when I have a layout, it's really easy for me with my brain to like get the layout and then go and create content. But I can tell you personally, this book has been through probably at this point 20 different variations. It has been so much. And every time we tweak it a little bit, it makes more sense. And then we have something else happen. And then we tweak it a little bit more and it makes more sense. Then something else bigger happens and we scrap all of it. So when you know that you're supposed to be doing something, you have that special sauce feeling, I will guarantee you that you're going to have to get in the weeds with it. It's going to feel like a hot mess. Same thing with my client that was creating this course. Even though the course and the objective felt really, really clear, when he started to create the content and like actually get in the weeds of it, he was like, I'm lost. We would have session after session and he'd be like, why am I even doing this? It's not going to make sense. People aren't going to buy it, all of the things. So that's part of actually being able to go after your big goals. You are not going to be able to have the yellow brick road that looks amazing and you get to skip down it and sing the entire time. You might be able to cross over it a couple times, but most of the time what I want you to know is that you are going to feel like this is hard. And here's what I want to tell all of you out there. And I'm like so passionate about this and revved up about it right now because sad to tell you that most of you are backing off of the hard. Stop it. Like go head first into the hard. Yes, hard is a thought, but let's just go ahead and say that it's hard. Writing this book has been hard. Like I just got the first draft done. Funny, you can actually find on social media, I got it done on my birthday. That was my birthday gift to myself, was getting a first draft for someone else's book done. And I did it. And it felt so good. And I wrote this amazing post about it. Well, guess what happened? Reality hit. I went and I was at an event speaking and I got back and my author and he's like reading through the first draft and he's like, hey, I think that we need to change this. And it is a big freaking change. I love you. You know who you are. I adore you and I'm all in for this. But it's a big change. It's not just like, let's edit it. It is like, let's go back through and like, basically, I like to think of it as like a thread. He's like, let's take this white thread out and let's like now put gold thread in it instead. It's a big freaking change. And I'm all in. I'm all in because I know the power of doing the hard things. Here's the thing. As soon as I heard it, I might have said a few swear words in my mind when he came back with the changes. But he's right. The book's going to be amazing. I agree with him. As soon as he said one phrase, like my mind went off and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the title for the book. And then we're going to kind of infuse it in this way and this way. I need to take out that whole section. We need to bump this up here. And then instantly my brain was like, that is hard. And then this like, ugh, came over me. And then I stopped myself and I was like, what do you expect? Writing a New York Times bestseller is hard. Of course, I'm all in for the hard. So I want you to stop telling yourself that hard is a problem. Hard is not a problem. The saying, the motto, my family motto that my parents grew up telling us was, you always do what you ought to do when you ought to do it, whether you want to or not, no debate. My family is high achievers. I can say that with like complete love. It's sometimes our kryptonite as well. But where do you think we got that from? We grew up saying that like every week at our family meeting. You don't create that type of a child without infusing it. And so If you tell yourself that you're not in for hard, then I'm going to tell yourself that you're probably not in for accomplishing some pretty incredible things if you're not in for hard. Now, remember, hard, you get to decide what that means, but I tell myself hard isn't a problem. But we've got to start showing up for our life and being willing to do the things that are hard. Because too often, what I see happen is somebody wants something and then they go out. So, this is where the book process comes in, right? So, a lot of times I'm either talking to people that want to hire me as a ghostwriter, or I'm talking to somebody that wants to write their own book and then they want to go and publish it with me, with our publishing company. And so I'm talking them through the process of writing a book, and they get to a point and they're like, well, that sounds hard. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And then they stop and they don't do it. So there's somebody out there that has like a book that's like, I hear a lot of people that are like, I have a book in my heart. Like, I just know I'm going to be an author. And I'm like, amazing. I'm like, I have so many different experiences and expertise. And like, I would love to help you with this. Like, tell me. And we start to talk about it. And I'm like, yeah, so you're going to need to do this, 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 this. And then they're like, well, that sounds hard. I'm like, yes. And I like smile. I'm like, yes, it is. And then they don't do it, and they're not an author, and they don't have a book, and they don't have those amazing things. They haven't shared their story through this avenue. I'm like, what are you doing? Do the hard. Who cares? You think you're supposed to have it easy all the time? Doing hard things helps you to learn how strong you are. It helps to create that muscle of resilience. I've interviewed, I think at this point, maybe a dozen people on the podcast, maybe a little bit less. We have some amazing interviews coming up. But I'll tell you, the most successful people that I've interviewed right here in this room, sitting across from me, have been the people that tell me that they have pretty amazing thoughts about being resilient. They are not the people that are checking themselves out when it gets hard. The thing that I hear over and over again as I interview people that are very successful is they have thoughts like, I can figure this out. I'm a very resilient person. I do hard things all the time. This is just one hard thing towards success. They have thoughts about themselves going through hard things. I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands, I would say thousands of people through coaching, through speaking at events, through podcast interviews, through book interviews, like all of these different places. I get to talk to probably thousands of people every single year. And I'll tell you that I can see when I'm talking to a weak person, they have a weak mindset around doing hard things. Now, listen, it's not a problem and you're not weak for saying that it's hard, but it's the thought that comes after that. I was talking to a woman this weekend and she said, life has been challenging. And I waited to see what she was going to say next. It's too hard. I can't do it. I can't take one more thing. And she said, life has been challenging and it breaks my heart daily. And I wake up daily knowing that I'm going to do everything I can to get through it and learn from it. I was talking to a champion. I was talking to a high achiever. I was talking to someone that I knew was all in for her own success. Did she have challenges? Oh yeah, she told me about them. Was it hard? So hard. Broke my heart. Life is hard. The things that you all are going through are hard. I get that, but you're up for the hard. You're up for the setbacks. You're up for the challenges. You can figure this out. If you have a book that you want to write and you sit down and it's hard, like game on, let's go. Let's write that book. If you have a manuscript all written and you're like, what do? I've tried agents. I've tried I don't know about self-publishing. Like, what do I do? Let's go. Let's figure this out. It is hard. I remember sitting across from Jaron Ullman, the other interview, where he talked about how many rejections he had been through for agents to come and try and get his books published. That was hard. That was crushing my heart listening to that. Did he give up? No. He is out there with 2 published books, more in the works, publishing house agent. He figured it out. That's one example. Go back through and listen to the podcast interviews that I've done with people and figure out where they talk about when things get tough, because I asked every single one of them. We can do hard things. I'm going to figure this out. I'm resilient. You are going to find thoughts that they're sharing with you about how to go through hard things. So my author messages me this morning. Hey, I like the book. It's okay. But I'm thinking, insert feedback here. And I think to myself, oh gosh, this is so hard. This is the hardest book I've ever written. Pause. What's the next thought? I'm all in. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's write this New York Times bestseller. He's right. The feedback is good. I'm going to use it. I have to change and probably take out now half of the book. That's okay. We got this. Find your hard. And then ask yourself, what do I tell myself about how this challenge is presenting itself? How do I think about myself? Am I the champion of my life, or am I the victim of my life? Now, you can be a victim of circumstances. You were in a car crash. Somebody did something to you. You are a victim, but you're not a victim ever of your life. You are the champion if you choose to be. We'll see you next time on Drive Your Thoughts podcast. Bye. Thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you're ready to get in the driver's seat of your own life, you can come and follow me at Drive Your Thoughts Coaching on Instagram, or come and see more ways to work with me at driveyourthoughts.com.
Yeah, whether ready or not, life's coming hard, no breaks, no stop. And if you put me on the spot, don't get it twisted, I never drop. If you feel a bit out of control and out the box, here's a way that you could drive your thoughts. Turn this podcast on, it's a lock. Carrie Marshall on the clock.